Hello my friends all over the world, wherever you are. William Poloniak here again at Whole Health Foundation. Today I'm making a special juice with some greens that I harvested from my garden. And today I'm using baby beets with their tops, some radishes, and some other greens that I'm going to show you now. Let's take a look at those greens. Today, in addition to the baby beets with their tops and the radishes, I have 160 grams of ginger, 160 grams of turmeric, some red Swiss chard, some lamb's quarters, which is usually considered to be a weed, but it's a very sweet tasting green that you can use in your salads or make in your juice, some collard greens, and French sorrel. And French sorrel sweetens up every juice, and of course carrots. So let's make some juice, and I'm going to start with my collards and my lamb's quarters. The first thing I'm going to do is plug in my thermometer and put in 3 ice cubes. Next I'm going to start with my lamb's quarters. Now remember to feed your produce in, don't drop it in. Now I want to point out that I'm using the near zero blowback cutter, which does an excellent job on greens, and the front loading feed tube. Now because the near zero blowback cutter does such an excellent job, you're going to be tempted to put more greens through than you really should. Try to resist that temptation. Less greens going through the feed tube is more effective. So let's make a little more juice and pass some more greens through. Some red Swiss chard. Now I notice my motor is working hard again, so I'm going to pull up my grid, scrape the pulp off on both sides of the grid. And notice how I put the grid in the palm of my hand and scrape it off the knife and put the grid back in and continue. Now my temperature's up over 30, so I'm going to put in 3 ice cubes. Now for some ginger. Sorrel, but I'm going to put in less this time because I notice my motor's working hard. That was much better. So less produce is more effective. I want to point out that when you do greens, sometimes some juice will leak down to the bottom of the feed pan. And what I'm going to do now is feed through some carrots to absorb that juice and push it back into the tray. So let's do that now. Now as you can see, we have juice from the greens in the bottom of the bowl. So what I'm going to do is feed in some carrots, allow the pulp to come out and absorb this juice. So let's do that now. Carrot pulp does an excellent job of absorbing juice, as you can see here. And we'll force that through. Large end in first. Get your bowl. Now these are the last of my carrots. Now I want to remind you, when you put your last produce through, there's usually a plug of produce in here, usually a carrot in this case. So I'm going to put some pulp into the feed tube, and I'm going to force that last plug through and then mix my produce and make some juice. The next step, of course, is to mix your carrot pulp with your greens pulp to get a thorough mix. And you want to rotate your collection bowl in both directions so you get a really, really good mix. Now we'll fold these into cloths and make some juice. And 3 generous ladles of pulp, it's about a cup's worth, into the cloth, folded in thirds like they came packaged. And I'm going to set this aside and press 2 cloths full at once because you get better pressure that way. So the first 2 cloths will go into the press, into the center, centered left to right, centered front to back. Make any adjustments if you need to, all the way back. And you back it off because you don't want this to go up too fast. If it goes up too fast, you have a tendency for the cloths to slip apart. You don't want that. And we'll continue. And next I'm going to demonstrate my less work 6 cloth method. This goes forward, these 2 go over, the spent cloths go on top. 2 cloths into the tray, and as before, centered left to right, centered front to back. Make any adjustments you need to make sure they're perfectly centered, all the way back it off a little bit. Now because there's a puddle of juice forming in the collection bowl, I'm going to take this spent dry pulp, crush it up, put it into the puddle of juice to absorb it. And then we'll put 3 more scoops of pulp. That's it all the way when you're in your last cloth. Flatten that. Pull this forward. This goes over. The spent cloths go on top. And my bowl is full. And because my bowl is full, I'm going to fill some bottles. And I'm going to set my tray back, not a little bit, because you will forget and damage your tray, believe me. Set it back a lot so it's very, very obvious. So let's fill up some bottles with juice. Now I'm filling this from the back side so the camera can get a good angle. Normally I would fill it from the front. Now you'll notice I'm leaving about 10% for filtered water. I'll continue making more juice. I'll pull this tray forward, seat it on the tray properly. 2 cloths go in the tray, and again, as before, centered left to right, centered front to back. Make any adjustments you need to all the way back. Back it off. And then we'll continue. 2 more scoops on top of the spent pulp. A little later we'll make it 1 scoop because this patty is getting thicker and thicker. You don't want your patty to be too thick. Last pulp. And I'm going to use a spatula to get the rest of that pulp out. This goes forward, that goes over, the spent cloths go on top. Centered left to right, centered front to back, make any adjustments you need to, all the way back it off. Very important to be in the center. Now while that's pressing, I'm going to take the spent cloth and I'm going to press it into a tight ball. And then I'm going to demonstrate how the Whole Health Foundation Model Juicer makes over 10% more juice from the spent pulp. And notice my folding technique, how I fold that under. I want to minimize slippage, and I'm going to do that in both directions. I'm folding that under like so. Flatten that, set it aside. That's not all the way. Continue. Now as you can see, I've taken the spent pulp and I've repackaged it into real tight packages, 2 double packets. And what I'm going to do now is use a measuring beaker to measure how much extra juice we can get using the Whole Health Foundation Premium Juicer. Let's put 2 cloths in and begin. And as before, this needs to be centered, and this is especially important now that it's packaged again. centered left to right, centered front to back. Want it exactly in the center, all the way back, and this time I'm going to wait for juice flow to back it off a little. Back it off a little. And I'm going to wait a few seconds for there to be traction between the two claws. Advance a little bit more, and then all the way. Now there's 16 ounces so far. Advance it all the way. Now I can leave the press up as long as there's a steady flow of juice. When it starts dripping drops, it's time to stop. Looks like we have 17 ounces of juice. Now because my collection bowl is full, I'm going to leave the juice in this measuring beaker. And let's fill some more bottles. Now I have 11 bottles of juice here, and I'm topping it off with water. Now you'll notice that I've topped off all these bottles so that there's a convex curve on the top. And that way when you store it, you can get no oxygen in the bottle and your juice will last, between 5 and 10 days. Well, as you can see, we have 5, 10, 11 bottles of juice plus enough for a taste test. And remember, more than one of these bottles came from pressing the already spent pulp in the Whole Health Foundation Premium Juicer. So we're getting over 10% of extra juice. And that last 10% is the most valuable juice, by the way, because it gets every micronutrient out of the processed pulp. So let's do a taste test. In this juice we have the radishes and the baby beets, plus the other ingredients you saw at the beginning of this video. Let's give it a taste test. Well, it's a very sweet juice. I really don't taste the radish yet, although there's a little tiny bite of radish in this juice. A very, very sweet juice this time. Well, I hope you like what you see, my friends. And if you did, please tell a friend. If you'd like to call me, my phone number is 760-753-0321. My email address is developtrust@cox.net, and my webpage is wholehealthfound.com. See you in the next video.